Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Eurogamer TV show. Coming up, we visit Arsenal FC's needlessly lavish new North London home, the Emirates Stadium, to take our seats with some of football's biggest stars and cheer on the challenges in the Pro Evolution Soccer Media Cup 2006. Meanwhile, later this month, Xbox celebrates a hard-fought and fascinating 5 years in the gaming world. We take an in-depth look back at the highs, the lows, and some of the more amusing in-betweens of Microsoft's rollercoaster multi-billion-dollar brand-building exercise.
But before all of that, let's take a look at a console that's not even 1 day old yet. Well, officially anyway. Yes, PlayStation 3 will launch across the US and Japan in a matter of mere days, which could also be said for Europe, if you count in the hundreds. Anyway, lucky for Eurogamer, we took delivery of our highly sought-after debug unit late last week. And lucky for you guys, we've been plundering Sony's powerhouse console to bring you an exclusive look at what the experts are calling PlayStation 3's first killer app.
Resistance: Fall of Man is the pulsating new first-person shooter from the gun-loving guys at Insomniac Games.
Let's go!
A new console platform has heralded a surprising creative departure for the team best known for its work on the ever-popular Ratchet & Clank series. Set in a fictional 1950s Britain, where the Second World War never happened, Resistance is the sort of game press releases would refer to as gripping, edgy, epic and sprawling, and truly next-generational. As it happens, the clichés in this case are emphatically appropriate. But we suspect the Insomniac guys couldn't really give a monkeys for any of that nonsense as long as, yes, it's fun. Well, Insomniac's supreme overlord of fun, Ted Price, was in London town last week on the final leg of what had almost certainly been an epic and sprawling European promotional tour. Price treated the audience of specially invited journalists, we always knew we were special, to a detailed presentation of the game. Of particular note was an explanation, illustrated by some nifty freeze-frame camera rotation, of why the power of PS3's cell processor is essential in creating the game's impressively eruptive ballistics.
So here we have a lot of guys who are all focused on you or your allies. And what's going on is that every single one of these guys is sending requests to the SPUs, whether it's a request for physics or collision calculations or navigation routines. They're all hitting the SPUs at the same time. There's no way we could have handled this on previous platforms. And in particular, if I can find it, I'd like to focus on this little guy here. This is a hedgehog grenade. And I've just thrown it out. And every frame that it goes through, it's also sending requests to the SPUs about where it is in space, what it's about to hit, if it's contacted something, what it should be doing. And in this case, it is just activated, and what we have is 50 individual spikes that are all now sending their requests to the SPUs. Each one of those spikes is running its own little AI routine, its own little collision routine, its own physics routine.
After that, and a healthy portion of hands-on play, we went head-to-head with Ted. Head to Ted?
We decided to make a first-person shooter well before the PlayStation 3 was launched, obviously. And it was important for us as a company to branch out and do something different because we've been working on Spyro and Ratchet platforming games for a long time. And there were a lot of us at Insomniac who wanted to take a break from the kind of goofy, silly games and make something for a slightly different audience. So Resistance: Fall of Man was a great chance to, again, kind of exercise our creative muscles a little bit and try something new.
The settings for Earth-based first-person shooters have become as predictable and hackneyed as the press releases they're accompanied by. Thank goodness, then, that Resistance is set right here in the UK, and you'll get to explore the relatively untapped virtual gold mines of Nottingham, Manchester, and not exactly top of our towns we'd love to see in high def, Grimsby.
England, for us, was a perfect setting because, first of all, no games that we know of have been set in England, at least no competitors. And secondly, it made sense from a story perspective. when the Chimera emerge and sweep across Asia and Europe, England is the most isolated and geographically the furthest away from the origin of the Chimera invasion. And so it made sense that that would be the last kind of freestanding European state. And as a result, it's kind of humanity's last stand in Asia and Europe.
Setting aside, Price is keen to point out what he reckons separates Resistance from the swarm of other apparently identikit shooters in the market.
First, I'd take a look at the theming. I mean, it's an alternate history theme, takes place in 1951 in Great Britain, where World War II never occurred. Definitely a very different setting than most first-person shooters. Furthermore, with the Chimera, who have their own unique architecture and lots of variety in terms of the enemies, it also presents a different style of enemy. You're not shooting Nazis in this game, not even close. And that not only means different kind of story elements, but it also means different types of gameplay, because we can create more varied combat. You don't have to worry about, we can have characters climbing up walls or busting through walls or doing all sorts of different things to surprise the player.
You heard me, Peterson. Tango 7 will provide covering fire.
Now, taking on a brand new franchise is challenge enough, you might have thought. But what's the appeal of busting a gut to hit launch day too? Especially since your potential audience is going to be pretty limited at first.
It's tough in the middle of a console life cycle to be the new kid on the block and have a brand new, for instance, first-person shooter. You get a lot more attention at the beginning of a console's life cycle. We weren't intending to make, though, your standard launch title where it's a port or a sequel or something that's been rushed. We took our time and made sure that this would be a robust game with a strong single-player component, a strong multiplayer component that would compete well over the next few years of the PlayStation 3's life.
Now, we couldn't let Mr. Price go without teasing out his views on the relentlessly controversial Blu-ray issue. As an independent studio working on the disc format, what are the real benefits?
Well, this game ended up at 16 gigabytes, and that's a lot. It's certainly much more than a dual DVD would hold. And it's not filler. I mean, high-res assets take a lot more space than what we were using on PlayStation 2, whether it's sound, models, animations, movies, you name it. So we put what was necessary to create the game on the disc.
And firmly setting the cat amongst the pigeons and the fanboys, Price is also convinced that Blu-ray will make a difference to the types of games we see in the coming years.
Well, yes, I think Blu-ray is an important aspect of the PlayStation 3 for developers because it does give you a lot of storage. A good example of why it's important for us is that we couldn't have released a worldwide disc. In other words, having all of the languages on one disc before this generation. On our Ratchet games, for example, we had to release a different US disc than European disc because the languages simply wouldn't fit. Or if we wanted the languages to fit, we had to cut other content. So finally, we have a storage medium that has a lot of room for growth.
A resounding thumbs up from a top developer, and another endorsement of Blu-ray that the Microsoft spin machine will need to deal with.
All hands into the night, Captain.
Resistance Fall of Man is out in the US on PS3's launch day of November the 17th. Keep and peel for the definitive Eurogamer verdict soon. But now it's time to tear ourselves away from mutant-infested Grimsby, how's that for art imitating life, and head to the streets of North London for a veritable festival of virtual football.
Won't be getting up from that trolley.
Konami's Pro Evolution Soccer 6 scissor kicked straight to the top of the UK charts last week, becoming the fastest selling title in the UK since November 2004, no less. And the series' popularity season upon season amongst the games press was evident at the recent PES Media Cup, which drew players from across the country for the winner-takes-all knockout tournament.
This year's Pro Evolution Soccer Cup final is being held at the home of Arsenal FC at the Emirates Stadium, the brand spanking new multi-million-pound theatre of dreams. Broken dreams if the current lot is anything to go by.
Sadly, our very own Premiership superstars Kristen and Tom withdrew from the Eurogamer squad at the 11th hour, complaining of strained reviewing muscles. A likely story. Anyway, far more important than us lower league chancers, the real draw of the event was the opportunity to hang out with PES 6 cover star and Chelsea and England captain, the mighty John Terry, and Arsenal wunderkind Cesc Fabregas.
How is this?
Fine, thank you.
Are you any good at this?
I'm better at PlayStation, but we will try.
Okay, well, let's bring your opponent up onto the stage. He is none other than the Chelsea and England captain, John Terry. Okay, how good are you?
I'm alright actually. There's a few good players at Chelsea. Sean Mike Phillips is probably the best at our place.
Yeah, he told me that.
No, he is actually.
Do you fancy yourself against a tricky little midfielder like him?
I don't know, we've just been playing them as one game more at a minute, so that's the chances.
Terry, famously a massive fan of the game, took on the Gunners star in a virtual Arsenal versus Chelsea celebrity clash. Well, we say Chelsea, but this being Pro Evo, bless its tight-arsed little socks, we actually mean London FC, of course.
He's off! He's off! Not without controversy.
It was a tense, nervy affair for the most part, but with the aid of Roman Abramovich's virtual billions, Terry's Chelsea snatched a famous 2-0 away victory.
It'll be a shock result. I think a lot of people had money on the younger man. That's it, 2-0 Chelsea.
Terry was all smiles afterwards, the model professional. Frankly, if we'd been him, having infiltrated the inner sanctum of his London arch-rival's power base, we'd have sneaked off and scrawled some graffiti about Arsene Wenger's mum on a door somewhere. Or at the very least, pissed on a toilet seat. A late kick-off and a few technical hitches meant the tournament itself was as much a test of endurance as it was gaming skill. But Konami was at least thoughtful enough to provide some suitable distractions for our ever-alert cameraman who couldn't wait to show the ball girls his tackle from behind. In the end, and well into the wee small hours, a champion was crowned. Sadly, our cameraman had already been red-carded for interfering with play by this point, but the cup went to a guy from some website called GameSpit? No, never heard of it.
On the 15th of November 2006, Xbox is 5 years old. After the incredible cynicism that surrounded the original 2001 launch, the big black beast of a machine steadily beat its way into gamers' affections. And now with 360, Microsoft can stake a not entirely implausible claim on eventual market leadership. So far, so good. Still much more to do. And now to commemorate this gaming milestone, Eurogamer takes a look back at 5 years of big parties, blockbuster games, and more than a little executive relief. So, happy birthday, Xbox.
So, just how successful is the original Xbox? Well, according to official figures, a not inconsiderable 24 million units of the heavyweight hardware are lounging in living rooms across the globe, including 16 million in the US and 6 million in Europe. Which, yes, by process of elimination means relatively bugger all in Japan, where the scale-tipping system remains a pot-bellied platform pariah. 24 million then is an impressive, respectable figure for sure, but well short of the 100 million plus global embrace PlayStation has smugly nestled into. So what has been the true impact of Xbox? We asked Eurogamer's veteran team of experts for their considered thoughts.
I think Xbox has been a lot more successful than any of us expected it would be from the very beginning. When it first came out, when we first heard that Microsoft was going to do a console, our immediate reaction, well, I say our, I mean basically everyone's immediate reaction was, great, so you're putting a Windows PC in a box. That's fantastic. And to be honest, nobody really took them seriously. 5 years later, they've sold 20 million units, which is not bad, it's not amazing. But the real impact has been that people now see Microsoft as a games company.
I thought the impact of Xbox to begin with was pretty dismal. Apart from the initial sales burst from Halo, the sales just dropped off a cliff. You really saw there was just a massive disinterest in Xbox as a platform. As soon as the GameCube came out, about 2 months after Xbox in Europe, the sales just completely disappeared, and Microsoft had to react really quickly with a £100 price drop, literally only a few months after launch.
Every time they do something wrong, they learn from it. They learned from the giant pad that only gorillas could hold, and they gave us a smaller pad that normal hands could hold. No other company's ever had the balls to turn around and redesign their controller within such a short space of time. They changed their price point within months of launch. They've just treated the whole thing as a learning experience, and their product at the end of 5 years is much better than it was at the very beginning.
They had a lot of teething troubles. They had the massive pads. They had all sorts of just issues with the way it looked. People weren't interested in it from a style point of view. There was just an incredible feeling that they'd dropped the ball in so many ways. But on the other hand, there was this console that had a hard disk. It had online play a few months after launch. It had lots of things. 5.1 surround sound, things that other consoles just didn't have as standard.
I think it's had an enormous impact on the market. I think when it was first announced, the industry sort of split into two camps. I think there was an air of disbelief in one camp, and in the other camp there was absolute delight that the sort of Japanese monopoly of the video games market was going to be broken, and that, you know, Microsoft was seen as the only company that could really stand up to people like Sony.
But while Microsoft's corpulent console might not yet have changed the world, the US firm's unorthodox approach has fundamentally changed the way the industry behaves, making waves that have even reached the profoundly stubborn shores of Japan.
As a journalist, the big change has been that Microsoft made themselves accessible, and that's won them a whole lot of friends, really. We were used to Sony, to Sega, to Nintendo, who cultivated this Japanese mystery aura around themselves because they couldn't speak English and because they were on the other side of the planet. You never really got to meet or to interview or to even just talk to Ken Kutaragi or Hiroshi Yamauchi or any of these other figures that they would put up as being their figureheads. Whereas people like Peter Moore, like Seamus Blackley, like J Allard have put themselves in the position of being men of the people. They come out, they talk, they converse, they want to hear your opinions as gamers or as journalists, as much as they want to deliver their own. And that's made them immensely popular, and it's changed how we do business as journalists.
It was that openness, I think, that really did affect the way that the whole industry was viewed, and it made people like Sony definitely become more accessible, I think.
Microsoft's disarming accessibility was matched by a money-burning charm offensive of staggering proportions, illustrated most potently by the hilariously lavish XO events. Not that the formula has proved exactly foolproof.
The XO events in Europe were absolutely incredible. I mean, the first one they put on was at Pierre Cardin's house in the south of France. And, you know, we were put up in a 5-star hotel on the Riviera sort of thing, and then shipped off into the hills to this sort of bubble house in the middle of nowhere. And the party was just absolutely, it was unbelievable. I mean, you know, they had like farmhouses and they were shining like X's on them, and they'd have to get permission from the farmers to do it and things like this. And, you know, they had like big circus acts, and they had Carl Cox DJing and stuff like that. And, you know, they had the party the night before they were supposed to show the games, and like no one saw any games. It was a complete farce.
My own personal favourite memory of anything to do with the Xbox is the XO6 or the XO events that they held in Southern Europe, which we always came away with great tales from those. My favourite memory of that lot is Kristen managing to nearly fall off Pierre Cardin's house and kill himself, and we were all convinced he had killed himself until it turned out he'd just upended a glass of red wine over his own head.
Though a number of key figures can ultimately be credited as being responsible for the Xbox project, history will continue to associate the very public vicissitudes of Microsoft's vaulting ambition in the console space with one man, J Allard. And while the former Master of Ceremonies these days lurks in the corporate shadows, the cult of J lives on. So, in honour of Mr. Xbox, let's take a trip down memory lane. Even if some of the memories are a little hazy, to say the least.
I'm thinking of moments at ECTS where, again, Allard and Molyneux were both in pieces in front of me. We had Kieran Brennan hosting the interviews. Both didn't really talk about the games. They were just talking about how they climbed out onto a balcony and were tearing flags down from the flagpoles outside their windows, and how they were drinking absinthe, and you could see they were still on it.
And there was the legendary night that we went out with J Allard in London, which allegedly ended up the following day with J Allard and Peter Molyneux attempting to steal a dump truck in Trafalgar Square, allegedly. But we'd actually sort of gone home and gone to bed by that stage because none of us could drink grappa to the degree that J Allard can.
J Allard was there right at the beginning, just sort of pulled me to one side and said, "Let's get fucked." And literally in the space of, I'm not kidding, about half an hour, we had about 4 ridiculous cocktails like the depth charge, and he was just going through this list one after the other of insane cocktails that we could drink. And literally after about 45 minutes, I was just in a different world, and I have no idea what happened after that. But all I could see was this sea of drunken journalists, all just being kind of picked on by Allard.
And the first thing Jay ever said to me at ECTS was, last night I tried to kill Peter Molyneux, and it's like, well, I didn't really know what to say to him, obviously, and then he sort of told me that he hadn't got to bed until like 6 o'clock that morning, and you know, they'd been power drinking absinthe and stuff, and it's just absolutely bizarre behaviour.
He kept Xbox in the headlines without a doubt. That man was a bit of a legend, and I kind of miss seeing him from time to time because Microsoft seemed to have pulled him back from the spotlight to become a bit more professional, I think.
I mean, like, Jay was a really, really nice guy, and I really hope to interview him again because he was absolutely fantastic to interview. You know, he's just completely down the line, very smart, obviously well trained. But he said exactly what he thought, and I think that he really was a credit to Microsoft. And I think, if we're sort of going to look back and say what made Xbox a success, I think Jay has to take a lot of credit for that. I think he drove it very hard, and he really was an ambassador for that console.
My favourite Allard memory? An early morning interview at E3 2004, where an exhausted-looking Allard revealed he'd awoken earlier to find himself in bed with half a mannequin. God bless you, Jay. And to round off our pre-birthday celebrations, after much deliberation, a few heated exchanges and at least 2 wedges, Eurogamer has compiled what we believe are the all-time top 5 console-exclusive Xbox titles. BioWare's spectacular Star Wars role-playing adventure broke the mould of lazy license leading to deliver a masterful exploration of the light and dark sides of the Force. Utterly uncompromising and savagely difficult, Team Ninja's showcase title rewarded the committed hardcore with a devilishly deep action-adventure. This unforgettable first-person shooter reset our expectations for movie tie-ins, and its stunning film-star look showed us exactly what Xbox was capable of when stretched. Owes its origins to Metropolis Street Racer on Dreamcast, but Bazaar's photorealistic City Boy Racer fulfilled its true potential on Xbox and gave Microsoft an instant smash hit. And topping our list, yes, it's Bungie's benchmark brace of sci-fi shooters. The importance of Halo in establishing Xbox as a credible gaming platform cannot be understated. The original was a bona fide system seller at a time when anything less than greatness could well have spelt doom, and the sequel gave Xbox Live the irresistible killer app it craved. And yes, we know we gave it 8 out of 10. Oh. But that's just the start of our birthday celebrations. Stay tuned to Eurogamer in the run-up to the November 15th anniversary for a host of special features and articles looking back on a console which, as we've heard, nearly claimed the lives and livers of at least 2 Eurogamers. Roll on XO7. But that's it from us at EGTV for now. Thanks for watching.